Good afternoon again. Good afternoon. Can I have everyone's attention, please, as we gather for lunch? Hope everyone is enjoying their lunch. How are we doing so far? You all enjoying the conference? Getting a lot of good information, amen? So we will not delay to get our next panel started. We have an hour. We want to get right to the heart of the matter. One of our partners and sponsors is, of course, General Motors here at the NNPA. Give General Motors a round of applause. The topic, this is a panel luncheon. The topic of this panel is cultural capital with diverse consumers through storytelling. Please tell everybody to come on in. They won't want to miss this. Come on in, everybody. Cultural capital with diverse consumers through storytelling. I'm going to turn this microphone over to the young lady who's going to get this going and introduce the moderator and our esteemed panelists, the Director of Diversity Marketing for GM, Tarshina Armstrong. Come on up, Tarshina.
Good afternoon. So I am really excited to be here today. This is my second NNPA conference, and it is a joy to be in a room full of culture ambassadors. But I would be remiss if I didn't give a special thank you to Dr. Chavis and the NNPA, because things become transactional with a lot of our media vendors, but Dr. Chavis, the relationship that he has with GM is not transactional. It's authentic. It's a true partnership. Over 50 years of a partnership, and he has stood up for us when needed. He has championed our talent within our organization, so thank you, Dr. Chavis. 23 also marks the 7th year of our Chevrolet Discover the Unexpected program. And this program is near and dear to my heart because I began my career at GM as an internship student, but they didn't have programs like this. But our HBCU students are immersed in all things marketing, journalism, and this can't be possible without the NNPA. Half of the students are assigned to go on a road trip and a journey with the NNPA publishers, and the other half are with us in Detroit, Michigan, learning more about the marketing world with Chevrolet. We have 10 phenomenal students, all from HBCUs, and I think some of them are here. So our DTU students, if you're around, please stand for us. These dynamic students were selected from a very highly competitive candidate pool, and over the summer, they are really driving our exposure into culture, highlighting our Chevrolet tracks, both in the fields of marketing and journalism. So right now, I'm very excited to lean into our industry panelists. When people say cultural capital, I say that that's my job description. My goal is to earn cultural capital for GM and our family of brands, and it can't be bought. It has to be earned by those within the community. So, with that being said, I am going to introduce our dynamic panelists, and they are going to discuss the diversity of storytelling, much like a lot of the publishers here today, through the lens of content creation, marketing, and traditional journalism. The first person within my family of team members at General Motors is David Millage, the person who never met a stranger, HBCU graduate of Tuskegee University, and he is our champion and one of our leaders on our Discover the Unexpected program and doing a phenomenal job. His title at GM is our Multicultural Marketing Assistant Manager. Next, I have Tiffany Green. Tiffany is a FAMU alumni. You see she has on the orange. But she is a ESPN play-by-play commentator and the first Black woman to serve as the play-by-play commentator for college football and ESPN. Tiffany is also leaning into our Discover the Unexpected program and showing these young people true professionalism as it relates to your craft of storytelling. And last year, I had the pleasure of meeting Tiffany while she was working at the Celebration Bowl for the Southwest Athletic Conference. And I am just so honored that she was able to become a partner in this program. And then last but not least, we have a dynamic young lady who really has a calling on her life, Brandy Merriweather. And she is a current student at Clark Atlanta University, a Gen Z content creator known socially as the Gen Z Publicist.
Yes,
she is the founder and senior publicist at her own B-Star PR. So if you all need any PR, please reach out to this young lady because she is dynamic. But she is definitely one of the most talented young people that I know. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, David. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tarshina. I must say that it's just been such a pleasure to serve in the role as Assistant Manager of Multicultural Marketing on this team, because as a Tuskegee University graduate and just a son of parents who are two-time graduates of Alabama State University,
Hornets in the house.
it's amazing that I get a chance to do this type of work and get paid for it. So I certainly ensure and just really make sure that I take it very seriously and just know that we're really paving the road for next generation of HBCU students to become marketers and journalists here. So General Motors has the aspiration to become the most inclusive company in the world. And really, inclusion comes to life through partnerships, and storytelling around this topic is incredibly important. Now, we're going into the third year of a partnership and sponsorship with the Southwest Athletic Conference, the largest athletic league in America that includes HBCU schools. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to help amplify that partnership and just team both words and deeds with that sponsorship. We tasked our multicultural agency of record for GM Brand with storytelling about the legacy of the alumni that have graduated from these fantastic schools, but also storytelling the athletes, the people and the students in the arts, the students in various academic roles in a way that's just meaningful, and when you see it, it'll really just pull on your heartstrings there. So what I like to do is ask our AV people to roll the video for what we call Make History.
We are exactly what you think. We are not at all what you think. We are shared history, proud, enduring, essential. We are a powerful present, often imitated, but, well, you know the rest. We are a limitless future, opening new doors, new ways, new everything. We are past, present, and future, all in one. Because the best way to honor our history is to make history. General Motors, honored to sponsor the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
I tell you, I'd never get tired of watching that video. And just when you notice the fact that amongst the general public, people think of HBCUs as just a band, as just fraternities. But through that storytelling, you saw that HBCUs produce scientists, produce architects, athletes, yes, and certainly leaders. So be on the lookout this fall because more content will be on the way associated with our Make History content. But you're not here to hear me talk about HBCUs. Even though we love it, let's get into the importance of how do we build cultural capital with diverse storytelling. So we'll kick it off with the first question here. There's a paradigm shift currently taking place, and soon the minority will become the majority. As a matter of fact, in 2045, we expect the minority to become the majority. So how important is it for companies to acknowledge this shift? And what should companies be doing to reach the diverse consumer base through storytelling?
You know, one of the things that I think is essential to the sustainability of any company is the fact that they have to find a way to reach their audience, but finding ways to adapt and adjust to the ever-changing landscape. And so I think about what happens from within a company, right? And you talk about General Motors and their desire to be the most inclusive company. That is so important because of your experience and the experiences of so many different people. They bring in their customs, they bring in their cultures, they bring in their experiences, and that helps then to amplify and generate ideas that are diverse, that come from a multi-layered type perspective so that it is a reflection of what's happening on the outside of the world. And so when you're talking about how do you tell stories in that way, again, I think it starts from within the companies to be able to amplify what's happening on the outside. Because I'll say this, and I'm going to take a sports spin here, because within ESPN, we've seen a couple of things, and I go to a couple of points and I want to find counterbalance with them. I think about the 2020 NFL draft, right? And when we're thinking about the storytelling of these fantastic athletes, we saw a number of the black athletes being reduced to their athletic prowess on the field only. And in terms of how we talked about those young people, we use words like beasts, freaks, monsters, animals. Well, that is a stereotype that has constantly been carried, and a gross stereotype, and truly just ugly, in my opinion, over time that is carried over. And sometimes we don't even know that we adopt and say those things about those young people. To take it a step further, because there was a lot of criticism, I think I was reading in the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, someone writing an op-ed, and I'm sure a number of black press outlets wrote about the fact that when they even talked about the bioblast of T. Higgins, a Clemson wide receiver, they put on one of the lines for him that his mother was overcoming drug addiction. What that tells me is from inward, there were not enough diverse voices in the room to amplify stronger storytelling for the outward public and audience. And it deserved criticism, and it needed that criticism. You counterbalance that with what you see with a more diverse group on the inside of ESPN, and you watch our NBA coverage, right? And our NBA coverage shows that the company listened. They took the time, because we had calls about this internally, about what we could do to make it better. And within that, you saw, dads and their sons and how they were reconnecting and learning about their stories and how they are so well-rounded. And we don't just come from one particular background or setting, but that there is a whole story to be told, just like the opening line in the commercial. We're exactly who you think we are, and we're exactly who we're not. And that's the beauty of the balance that we bring. So I think from storytelling perspective, I'll take it one step further. They said we had a little bit of time, so
take your time.
Forgive me for expounding a little bit further, because as it hits home with HBCUs, right? And how do we cover it? Now people are wanting to pay so much more attention to historically black colleges and universities because of the change in the social landscape and the cultural shift that happened with George Floyd. Well, it's important for me as an HBCU graduate to raise my hand and say, this is how you thoughtfully cover it, because you're not gonna go to a Tuskegee homecoming or to the AUC, FAMU homecoming. You're not going there and covering that game the same way that you do Georgia or Alabama. Understand the nuances that we have within our college football weekend and what goes into it, the pride, the pageantry, the family, the legacy, the tradition, all of that. Understand that so that when we craft stories, we can more adequately and accurately reflect what's happening there. That's the creation of Black College Live. Again, the counterbalance of myself and my partner Jay Walker to try to share those stories and those experiences from a more well-rounded view. So I think in a long-winded way of saying it starts with storytelling from the inside and penetrates out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I guess in some ways, I'm definitely echoing that. I think companies, you know, in the next few years, brandiology, I believe that for them to continue to see financial success, it's going to take to invest in the next generation of leaders and people who look like me and young creatives. Specifically, you know, BIPOC content creators and, you know, like you guys are doing with DTU. I think when people think okay, let's reinvest, let's find ways to get ahead, you think of marketing, right? You think of, okay, let's give marketing dollars to black communities, and then in a few years it'll be more authentic because we're only maximizing off that value in the relationship already. Yes, but it's also important, especially as someone who's still in that college demo, to see that there are programs like DTU that are literally aiding people while they're in college and able to get the knowledge and expertise. So then when they're working at these companies, whether it's, you know, GM or other companies, they're able to have this sense of relatability while they're working on these campaigns and, you know, doing projects. And to me, I don't know about y'all, but when I'm looking for things to purchase and buy, I look at LinkedIn, I look at places to see, you know, who's making these campaigns, who's the brains behind why I even want this product. And so it's reinvesting in their future, but like you said, if it's gonna be the majority, it almost makes too much sense to find ways now, if they haven't already, to make sure that dollars and, you know, that education is invested in now for the company so longevity, you know, can be continued, financially.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Because Tiffany, you really just spoke about ensuring that we have, you know, the right people in the rooms at the tables to help ensure that brands are showing up in an authentic way.
Yeah.
And then Brandy, you put it, you know, very nicely when you said basically ensure that we invest in the future people
Right.
that can take those seats on the table. So I like that you all covered both of those paths there. So next question. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of working with diverse influencers and the media?
Brandy, I had a lot to say, so I know you do too. Let me
Yeah.
step aside.
Okay, so I guess being an influencer, being someone who's utilized my social media platforms to kind of amplify some of the things that are happening on campus, but then just my life and growing as a publicist and just the transparency, I've been able to find ways to uniquely work with companies and not just talk about the things that I'm engaged with, but find ways to work with Her Campus, Black Enterprise, and other publications rolling out to share the stories and the experiences that I'm having on a media platform. So it's kind of pushing both. So to answer your question, why is it important? I believe that, especially now, it's gone the days of just being a professional and doing the job and sticking your head down. People want to know who are the people behind what I'm seeing. I think you guys have probably heard of the de-influencer, where everyone wants to understand the authentic value that is behind these campaigns and ads, and even what writers are, writing on the platforms that y'all are a part of. People want to know, who is this journalist writing this, and why do they have this perspective? And journalists in their own right are influencers as well. They're influencing, people with their writing and their storytelling. And so there's like that happy medium where, being a professional is now the new influencer. Doing the work, but then also amplifying it in different platforms is what's influencing the world. So I think, I don't know if I answered your question, but it's important. And, I really do believe in a specific way, especially the publishers that are here. I think we heard the conversation with Google when they were talking about, like sharing tips and people being able to go to your platforms and getting resources, not just stories about things that are happening in our culture, but actually learning from professionals or experts and having those columns is how you get on top of Google when people are searching, random questions. Working with influencers, experts, people who are, knowledgeable in their fields is only going to excel publishers and, our culture as a whole. Yeah.
To piggyback off of that, because that was a
Sorry, I was
fantastic.
long-winded
No,
too.
honey. We got time. But the symbiotic relationship that has to exist between influencers and media, I think, is so important to lean into. And you said something that made me think of Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point book, where he talks about experts and salespeople and then connectors. And so to me, influencers are an updated version of connectors, right? Bringing people together with products and aligning them. And so what I love about the new age of influencers is that it allows professionals like me to learn, right? There are tactics that we can pick from and adapt to help us in our space, and I think it goes the other way as well, that there are points that they can learn from us as well. So I think the symbiotic relationship is something that we will see moving forward, even though we're going together in parallel lanes.
No, for sure. And even, I guess, I want to speak a little bit on the experience, and I guess that might be in here a little bit. But in my recent relationship with GM, being able to not just work and show some of the things that I've been doing on social media, but then, like I said, working with her campus, working with Black Enterprise and sharing those stories, it has found a happy medium where they're getting quotes from me, or, I'm able to share an experience that I had with GM. I'm not a journalist by any means. I think that profession, there's a lot that goes into it that I have not even tried, because it's a lot, and kudos to those who've taken that as a, field. But being able to share those experiences, and then a journalist from like Rolling Out adding what they know and what he's seen, I think only added value to his story, because he wasn't present when GM gave that check, or he wasn't present, when these certain things happen. And so, yeah, that's just to kind of like add on. I've seen the value that it has when influencers and media come together and share their stories.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you made the comment about influencers and what you can learn. I tell you, just in interacting with Brandy, for the last almost year, I've learned quite a bit from a content creation standpoint. And the second one is, hey, no need to apologize about being long-winded, because if you aren't long-winded, then I certainly will be. So
Okay, good.
I'll let y'all handle that, and I'll do my best to be as brief as possible. So let's move on to the next question. Can you talk about some of the work that you've done currently with GM, and what excites you the most about this work?
Well, I was privileged to be able to come here to Nashville, but had the opportunity to meet some of the DTU intern fellows prior to. We said what's up via boot camp, saying hey, and then we're introduced via Zoom. And so what it is for me is purposeful work, right? And it speaks to my mission. I'm excited about these young people. So the fact that Chevy's Discover the Unexpected has picked top-notch individuals, well-rounded, talented, leading us into the future, and that I get to just raise my hand and share a nugget or two and try to guide them along the way as a mentor fills my cup, right? Because that's why God has placed me in this position to do what I'm doing, is to give back. And so for as much of the learning as they're looking to do and soaking up all this information and knowledge, it's reciprocated back the other way. Janiyah just did something yesterday at the National Museum of African American Music, and she put some content together in 5 minutes. And I will not tell you that I could have done that. I would have spent the rest of the night doing that. It just comes natural to them. And so instead of resisting it, I'm learning to appreciate it and understand it better, because they are teaching me a new language. And so what is, I feel, most important about the Discover the Unexpected program is that, and I'm not just saying this just cause, like GM has laid out a roadmap and provided them a course that they get to be set on. And they are in the driver's seat to control what happens in their career, to be able to put themselves ahead of their peers, to separate themselves, and they get to do it all while earning $18,000, which is amazing along the way. I'm not saying that just cause, like, I wish those types of opportunities were available to me, because now you get to weed out and try things that you like, that you don't like, understand how to speak up for yourself when you're in spaces, and get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So those are things that drew me in to the program, and I'm watching it play out in real time. That's quite fulfilling.
Yeah. I say my experience working with GM it has been a little different. I'm not even saying I just started, but as my dad's from Detroit, Michigan, and so we grew up a Cadillac family. I'm sure you all know the history of like Cadillacs in the Black community and what that is as a badge of honor. And so growing up, like literally my first car was a Cadillac, and I thought I was like, that's nice, right? It's my mom's car that she passed down, but to be able to drive up to the private school where I was one of few Black women that were there, in my Cadillac, music high, I really felt like I was doing something, you know? And so the relationship and just the understanding of like GM has literally grown from me just being like a fan page and like going on their Instagram, and every time they're doing something, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, just like commenting and just supporting everything that I saw that, you know, that I loved. But it's grown. I've gotten to be like, you know, really have like a front row seat watching Therese, watching Tarshina, Charles, David, and like the rest of the team execute things that they're doing, and really give back to the community in like an authentic way. The relationship is still growing. I got a car loan. I was able to take the Chevy Blazer. Therese got to, you know, see all the things that I was doing behind the scenes with my mom. For Mother's Day, I gave her, I'm like, okay, we got this car for 30 days. And I created content sharing that experience. I'm like, I'll take you anywhere for 30 days. And I documented it. Of course, day one, my mom used that up. I took her everywhere for 30 days, all the way up till Mother's Day. And she didn't use it as much as I thought she would, but we ended up doing a lot, from going to like the Black Rodeo and experiencing a lot. Especially the older I get, the less time I spend with her. And so it was a great experience to kind of bridge that with trying the Chevy Blazer and driving it around. And so my relationship is just like only continuing, like being here, especially as a young publicist, surrounded by publications that I would study or learn about as a junior publicist and have to pull those contacts when I was working on press junkets. And then to see the history, even why I started was to amplify Black voices. I saw there was a lack in my world, in Brandy world, as young people being amplified within the media, young people who looked like me, young people. And so I stand corrected, because when I was walking through the Google Initiative area, I saw all the stories that have been amplified about young people that are not in the same community that I am in Atlanta, but even like Atlanta Voice, they did a story on a client that's 16 years old. She's a girl gamer. So I'm seeing people really start to prioritize amplifying like my peers' stories. And so like being here and having like a front row seat to the amazing work that y'all are doing has been a pleasure, yeah.
Well, certainly.
All right.
So,
Thank y'all.
She's excitable.
Oh.
If you don't mind, this is what is exciting. This is what I see in the fellows. This is what I see in this generation, because you all, you're pushing us forward, right? You're the reason why we get energized. I feel like I'm the hybrid between, you know, many of the attendees here and the young people that we get to work alongside. And so this is what gets us moving, right? This is what re-energizes us and fills up our tank to keep going, because there's so much innovation, there's so much forward thinking, and there's so much advancement in thought and the way that you brand yourselves and prepare yourselves and present yourselves much greater than I can remember being at your age. So that's uplifting.
And I must say,
Thank you.
let's not gloss over the fact that she got a Cadillac when you first started driving.
I had a Chevrolet Celebrity. She had a Cadillac for her first
I
car.
did. It was my mom's old car, but I mean, I drove that till it literally went to car heaven, and you know, I ended up getting another Cadillac. So you know, I upgraded to a STS, but yeah, super grateful for that. My dad wouldn't have had it any other way. He's GM diehard, so yeah. Yes, he was a minister. Yes, he definitely, yes, yes,
right.
that is factual.
All right, now remember, no questions, no questions, no questions. All right, so next question here. What would you like to see more of from brands when it comes to the topic of diversity and storytelling?
I think just remaining authentic, right? I think that's so important. We have seen a number of companies, without having to name any, really swing and miss, you know, not hit the mark because it felt tone deaf and it didn't feel like it connected with the community. But as Tarshina made mention of earlier, it's being in the trenches and being there consistently over a period of time and not just hopping on board when it feels popular or convenient or raises, you know, their social capital, if you will. So I think being able to be authentic in the storytelling continuously, but also doing the behind the scenes work to be able to provide a vantage point that is both true to the communities that they're looking to connect with, as well as the company, is most important to me, in my mind.
Yeah, I think this is two ways for me. So especially while I was like sophomore, freshman year, spending a lot of time on campus, I used to see companies, you know, bring their booths to campus. It was dope to see these companies wanting to, you know, be on the promenade. I don't know if anyone is in there you see, but like the promenade is where it's at when you're going from library to class to your dorm. And these brands would set up, but the people who are the brand ambassadors trying to get us to come over to the booths didn't look like us, didn't know where they came from, didn't know which school was what school. And I felt like there was just this missing piece. And I was able to be a student brand ambassador for a few companies. And then I went back to them and told them, like, look, if y'all gonna do this again, this is how you gotta do it. And giving them the blueprint as to how to attract more of us, more students to engage within. So I used to say, and I think it's being worked on, so that's why it's like I can't say that's the thing. As far as inclusion and valuing the students and young people within their brand campaigns. You know, if you're gonna go to the AUC, get some AU students, you know, to be brand ambassadors, put some money in their pocket. Plus, if I see my homegirl, homeboy, whatever, working that booth, I'm more likely to go over to that booth. Instead of just walking by, I'm gonna support them because I'm happy they're getting their coin. So, and then the other side is, I think more transparency. I think during COVID, for me, I loved when I was being able to see the professionals behind the campaigns, the percentages of how much is going where. And it made me realize how much a company truly cares about the community and buyers that they're marketing to. So I would love to see more storytelling with professionals that are behind the scenes working on this stuff, because those are my influencers, the people who are doing the jobs. So like those are the people I looked up to create a blueprint like yourself. Like my friend is, you know, a mentee of yours. She's watching your blueprint and following what you've been able to do. And so more companies amplifying those who are behind the scenes is what I think is gonna aid in storytelling and just the authentic piece that you're talking about.
You know, I love the fact that, you know, a few things that just kind of came up often just in your responses here. Being authentic. I know within GM, we speak a lot about ensuring that we don't just pursue words, but we pursue deeds, right? Yeah. And so us being here, us being involved with the SWAC, us being with DTU, you know, it's a representation of that. But the other part is, I think to storytell, you have to do the work. And I know within our team, we often refer to the work we do as a labor of love. And when you engage in that labor of love, you make sure that you have representatives that speak to the audience where, where a brand might be activating and things. So very astute that not only did you point out that these brands needed to have the right kind of representation on campus, but you took it the next step by engaging in that. So good for you.
Oh, thanks.
All right, so next question. Journalism as we know it is evolving with the rise of digital and social media. And many people now look to influencers for news. How can we ensure there's a space for both journalists and influencers to work together to share stories? So purposefully planted this question here because journalist, influencer, let's get to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think especially with in the creator space, I'm seeing a lot of the journalists that cover content creators. They'll come, they'll do interviews, they take a photo with the content creator, and then that's a part of their brand. They're able to say, look, I spoke to this content creator before they had millions of followers. Same thing with music artists or talent in specific places. And then, I see the journalists being able to release books and become authors, and they're becoming talent as well because their expertise is of value, especially if you're someone documenting everything else, you pick up on more knowledge than sometimes people going through the motions of doing so. And especially when there's teams behind, influencers. So I've talked with a lot of journalists. A lot of my best friends are journalists and tell me what makes sense, what doesn't. I learned about trends and, just getting ahead, national observances, all that stuff that I've learned that is aiding social media right now and things going viral. I learned from my journalism friends, the ones who studied journalism. I studied international business with a minor in marketing and publicity. My friends that are journalists have taught me more about publicity than I've learned in my classes. And so I think to answer the question, I believe that them kind of coming together in ways, just like I was talking about with like getting professionals to, comment on different tips on the content that you're writing, getting quotes from influencers, but then also letting those journalists create their own profiles on social media and amplifying them because they're experts in that specific field that they're covering as well day to day. So there's a bridge. I think the influencers are starting to be are taking over and aiding content as far as what journalists are writing. I think journalists are also influencers in their own right.
I would say it's a slippery slope. Because it's a slippery slope, yeah. As journalists, we are trained to have a standard, a code of ethics that you operate by, and so it can sometimes be challenging when there are influencers and a lot of people putting out information and leads to misinformation in the process, and you don't know really what you're ingesting and if it to be true. Right. So people in this room, journalists who have written and those who have come before them, have been a trusted and credible news source in their community for a period of time. That's what journalists help to do, be a standard bearer. And I know that many in this room have been able to get a beat on the community and really crack down on issues that affect our communities and be able to tell the stories that are often overlooked and unseen. So I think there is still very much a lane for journalism, but what happens is, just like when you talk about journalism, you talk about media in general, well, that's a broad scale and space, right? So you're talking about practicing journalists, television, radio, newspapers, then you have PR and communications and marketing and advertising. It's so broad, and right now it's starting to all bleed together. So that is why I feel like it's a slippery slope, because you can take from what Brandy said and learn, but you're also doing it responsibly.
Right.
See, responsibility is a big piece to this all, because you're acting responsibly, and you're also seeking out information to make sure that you are having that extra source, right? We're known to go to our sources and triple check what we have, and so you're doing so in a responsible manner. Unfortunately, that is not the case for all that are practicing and influencing. So I do think, like we talked about earlier, there can be, a learning from both sides, but I also think that it's okay to stay in your lanes too.
Yeah, and I want to add to that because I think a solution, and based on the conversations that I've had with some of my friends that are journalists, is them getting themselves out there more. And just like I'm learning from them and vetting information and getting more facts from them and stuff that they've researched. I mean, y'all are historians. Like, people who are able to track history and write stories are historians in my eyes, and especially at HBCUs, that's how we identify those. And so them pushing themselves out there, creating content, I know it's a lot. It's like, why can't I just be a professional and stay in this lane? I gotta be over here making TikToks. But merging the two is how I think those sources are gonna be able to, you could see those who went to school for, who are educated versus those who are just kind of amplifying the messaging that you guys are already pushing out. So the relationships are extremely important. So that way information is able to be pushed out more on socials, but it's factual. It's, it's someone who's, been able to research and do the job behind that information. So the solution, I think, is them being besties. Like, I got my journalist besties, so that way people can be responsible, but then those journalists will start creating their own brands and, and leading into influence as well.
Or can I say, hire people like Brandy and those young people who are sitting at the table.
Yep.
For those who may not be comfortable, this is that great opportunity to build that relationship so that it can be, comfortable for both too. And I think that's a great opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Certainly believe, it's fair to say that it's lots of room for both journalists and influencers, but to sum it up nicely, hey, to whom is, excuse me.
Much is given, much is required.
Right.
We know
Let
it,
the church say.
Yeah.
You know
what's
what's so interesting is that, when you get in these forums, if I was in a personal setting, I would have just said Luke 12:48, But I'm like, I don't know. Can I do that? Can I do that? So thank y'all so much. Great peanut gallery. So next question here. So we kicked off this conversation with the powerful SWAC commercial that featured HBCU student athletes. So what does this mean to you to see HBCUs highlighted in such a national spot by a global brand like General Motors?
So I got to actually see the premiere of it at the SWAC basketball championship. And I mean, it was just like this. It was big jumbotron. And to see the black faces, and like I said, I've been preaching on campus how it's like, okay, we're being marketed to, but not included in the marketing, not included in every aspect of it. And then to see people who are literally like my peers in a commercial meant so much. And I think even after that, I talked to Teresa and I was like, can I get the list of names? Like, I want to know who they are, because I think it's so dope that they were amplified in this way. But even the sports that you guys chose to highlight, I think is so important. Of course, we think of band. When you think HBCUs, you think of like basketball, football, and like all these traditional sports, but like soccer and volleyball, and I wanted to say some names because I can't talk about amplify and not utilize this stage to amplify some of the you highlighted soccer players: Travis Mason, Christian Henry, and a volleyball player named Jada Hall, who've all gone on and have made a success within their HBCU campuses. And I think amplifying them was one of the most great experiences, seeing that, especially premiered at a SWAC basketball championship where other athletes were. I think there was so much value there, and like I said, I was shouting it out on Instagram, screaming, because it was such a moment. And I think more brands will follow up after that to see okay, we don't have to get paid actors and actresses, we can go put some coin in some of the HBCU students' pockets. If we're trying to market to them, let's include them. Yeah.
And the fact that it shows that there is value there, right?
Yeah.
There is representation there, and that we're seen, okay?
Yeah.
So we've been here. right? HBCUs have a remarkable history, both academically and athletically, and so to set the trend and standard, to do something greater with that, just beyond lip service, I loved it, because it was just like, this is exactly what these students deserve. We see it done in a number of different ways outside of HBCU students, so it was wonderful that a spotlight was shown in that regard. And it's so interesting because it comes at a time when you talk about the non-traditional sports. We're in a city where literally breaking news, you know, the fact that Tennessee State's gonna field a men's ice hockey club team next year, Fisk and their gymnastics team. I mean, so it all makes sense, and that representation shows that we can do more than just what was presented to us, that they're broadening horizons. I think Howard is starting a rugby program, right? So like, we can expand, and we are, again, multifaceted as Black individuals. These HBCU students are offering so much more, and I think it helps to create a more complete picture of who we are.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself, really. We've referenced DTU interns quite a bit here, so it wouldn't be right if we didn't have a question referencing this particular program. So obviously we have our DTU students in the room here. Because of the experience that you all bring, certainly please share with them any advice that will help them on their careers as aspiring journalists, communications professionals, as well as marketers.
Well, I'm gonna get out the way first so that Brandy can bring it home. But I think trying everything, we talked about that earlier, that's so important. And when you try everything, what does that do for you? I was a person who put all my eggs in one basket. So trying everything helped me to eliminate those things that I knew I didn't want to do after having gone through them. The other piece to it is, or the other side to the coin is, when you try everything and you're still searching for what you want to do, you can start to gravitate towards those things that really pull your interest in. So that's, again, the beauty of this program, as they're getting to try so many different things across different spaces. The other part is being able to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? So the Discover the Unexpected is a perfect name and theme for it, because when you are put in positions in corporate America or your newsrooms or wherever space you're in, a lot of things come up that you're not really equipped to handle, or you're not sure if you can. But what it does is it proves to yourself what you're made of, right? How quickly you can adjust and adapt and figure things out, right? You're learning sometimes new things about yourself and saying, oh, wait a minute, I did that? Okay, I got this the next time. Like yesterday, being able to work a room with individuals that they may or may not have been familiar with. And so you get a chance to network and practice on that, because what happens when you're in a flip situation and there are not a bunch of people in the room that look like you? How do you generate conversation? How do you insert yourself? How do you make yourself memorable? Those are all things that, again, this program is helping to facilitate, and I love that. Lastly, a chance to motivate these young people. So along the way, I see myself in them, and understanding that I needed encouragement. I needed someone just to give me a good word, to tell me, an atta girl, you're doing a good job. And it's okay if you don't do everything right, but you keep on going. And so that's what I enjoy too, is keeping a positive energy and sharing that with them, because there's a lot of self-doubt during that time of life, honestly. And so you want to reassure them that they are supposed to be here and that it will all work out. If you keep doing your part, your path will be made clear for you.
Yeah. Oh, giving advice is always interesting for me, because like, I'm still learning. I'm still on my journey. And like, even getting opportunities to speak at conferences like this, to me, it's bigger than like me getting the opportunities, like who I represent, that really gets to be here. And so to see like my peers a part of the program is great, but some of the things that I've learned as I've journeyed is like that I say is like, listen. and like know what type of professional you want to be. Like, granted, I feel like in the Black community, we're still searching for that financial blueprint sometimes, at least for me. But when it comes to the blueprint of amazing publicists and marketers, I have that already. You know, like, I've been able to have great mentors and just listen. And it's aided me in understanding the type of professional that I want to be in this world, and the type of morals that I want to have. I've also learned a lot of what to do, but I've learned a lot of what not to do. I've learned a lot from their experiences on what I don't want to be like. And I think that's the part a lot of people don't talk about as much, as like what you learn that you know, to construct the professional that you want to be. And so I've taken every experience, every time that I've gone into rooms or had opportunities and I saw a lack thereof of certain things, instead of just challenging, I was like, okay, when I go back to the AUC, when I get my opportunity, when I start my firm, this is how I want to be, and these are the type of people I want to work with, and things like that. So it's crafted me in who I am and opportunities like this. But a lot of it was listening, taking notes, and taking it back home and doing my thing. So I always say listen and just know who you want to be.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
DTU students, I hope you got all of that, because I will be testing you on that. So thank you so much. Please give it up for
Thank you.
Brandy,
Thank you.
Tiffany,
Thank you.
and then lastly, the NNPA.
Woo!
Let's
give
hear
it
it
up
again.
for David.
Let's hear it again for our panel, Brandy, Tiffany, David. Give them another big round of applause. Give General Motors a round of applause. We're going to go right next door to our next group and get that started in the next few minutes. But as we leave, I was thinking as I was watching that video, that HBCU video, and hearing David speak, and this is me speaking, not General Motors who's streaming. This is not General Motors. This is not NNPA. This is just me.
Yeah.
What we just saw up here today is on the line, because with this Supreme Court decision, trust me, there are other corporations that have called themselves trying to do diversity and inclusion who called their employees back home today. Come back from the road, we're done with that. These people weren't. They're still here. You understand what I'm saying? So this is important, and we hope that it remains that way. It should, but that's not going to be that way for every corporation. Everything is on the line, and you're going to hear more of the conversation. Why do we still need HBCUs? The Supreme Court ruled today that we are colorblind. Why do we still need HBCUs? Why do we still need black newspapers? That's what's coming, folks. So this conversation today, this was set up before the decision. This is a good thing. This has to be maintained, but don't take it for granted. Because there are other places, am I right? There are other corporations that are shutting that down today as a result of that decision, because affirmative action is over. So that is why this panel is so important. And the contributions we've heard today, the collaboration with us, the lifting up of the storytelling through our HBCUs is so critical. So we should really value what we've heard here today. Amen? Give them a round of applause again. We're going to go right next door for our last panel today. Have a little bit of bad news. The weather, you've heard the noise. No tour today at Fisk, unfortunately. The weather is too severe. So we're going to go to our panel next door and then get ready to wrap up for the day, and we'll have some free time to mingle. All right?
Therese has my camera. Okay.